So I'd like to get started, Jennifer, and thanks for coming. Also, thank you all of the people out there in the ether also for attending. This is a Masters of Financial Innovation and Technology. It's going to be a little chat, and as soon as I get my slides running, and it's going to be me, right? I'm not as important as a special guest, but I'm the director of the Masters of Financial Innovation and Technology program here at Smith. Also happen to be the director of research at the Institute of Sustainable Finance. Jennifer, we could probably talk about both of the topics in depth. We'll try to limit ourselves to financial innovation and technology. And I'm a professor at the Smith School of Business. But the reason that you're all here today, and I see we've got a relatively good attendance for a Thursday afternoon where the markets are doing well. We have Jennifer Reynolds. She's the president and CEO of Toronto Financial International, which is a public-private sector partnership and whose mission is to promote and develop Toronto's financial services sector and to establish its prominence as a leading global financial center. I probably don't need to motivate why Jennifer's here to talk to us today. I'll try to do it regardless, but I'll maybe give some of the highlights of your career up until now, besides the fact that being president and CEO of TFI is probably reason enough to have you. You've had a 20-year career, at least a 20-year career in financial services, senior roles in investment banking, venture capital, global risk management. Prior to TFI, you were the president and CEO of Women in Capital Markets, Canada's largest industry association and advocacy group for women in the financial sector. It's never been more important than now to promote that. And I know we're trying to do it at the MFIT as well. You are a director on the board of Citibank, director on the board of BF&M Insurance, director of the board of Canada Develop Investment Corporation, director of the board of Women's College Health Hospital Foundation, UN Financial Centers of Sustainability. You're also on our advisory council for the Institute of Sustainable Finance, and we've been speaking a lot the last couple of days and weeks. And you were named the Women's Executive Network Canada's Most Powerful Women, a top 100. We could probably go on. You're a graduate of Harvard Business School's Women Leadership Program. This is the low light. You got your MBA from McGill, as well as your Bachelor of Arts in the double major, Political Science and Economics from McGill, so a lesser institution than Queen's. Jennifer, I always like to make fun of where other people do their degrees, so don't take it personally. And you also hold an Institute of Corporate Directors designation. It's a pleasure to welcome you today, and I look forward to our chat.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here.
And I'll just take off the slides for a second so that people can at least partially see us talking. So we wanted to talk about the financial ecosystem in Toronto, what we should expect will come in the future, how we got here. You and I talked about what's going on in other countries as well, in Ireland, in the EU, it seems like anywhere you talk to, sort of the financial ecosystem is changing, but some things are staying the same. So what's going on in the Toronto ecosystem, and what should we know going forward?
Well, I think we're in a good position, actually. The Toronto ecosystem is quite healthy and robust. I think we've had a good funding environment in terms of VC investment into our fintechs. We've got strong post-secondary institutions in the region. We've got good support from financial institutions, either directly or through accelerators and incubators. So we've had a really good stretch of growing some really strong fintechs. We also have VC funds that are really focused on only fintech. So we have more sophisticated investors than we have had in the past, which is great news for the whole environment. I think the other thing that I talk about a lot when I'm doing international marketing for the Toronto Financial Centre is the special sauce that we have is that we've got this very strong, large financial services sector, and we also have this very large, strong tech sector. So side by side in the same region, that's a huge strength for us. Drawing on that tech talent into the industry has been allowed us to grow in the way we've had. I'm sure you've heard the stats that we've got the fastest growing tech market here in the Toronto region in North America. We also have the fastest growing financial services sector in North America. So those are two pretty special things. We're the second largest financial center too. So all of that, I think, is, making it a pretty exciting environment right now. And it's also attracting a lot of attention, not just from Canadian investors, but if you look at fintech deals, let's say, that were done over the last few years, at least half the money coming in is from a US investor. So we're really getting strong interest as well from the US. So, a lot of that drain that we always felt towards the Silicon Valley is, I think that's ebbed a little bit, and we're seeing a lot of the talent and a lot of the dollars get more focused on Toronto.
That's that's great. It's also consistent with what I've been hearing on what's the attraction to Toronto. I mean, sure, there were some temporary gyrations for the reasons that people were coming to Toronto, but it seems like there's a real business case to relocating and also just having organic innovation in Toronto. It's not, do people decide to domicile here? Is this an environment that is just conducive to innovation? And I think it is important that we have a good tech sector and a good financial sector, because some of the best financial innovations might come from tech firms, and some of the best technical innovations might come from a financial firm. And the intersection of those two and having them both in Toronto, I think is important. The idea of technology and sort of finance melding brings up the natural question, I know for the program, but just in general, what kind of skills do people need? I know in the pre-call, you and I discussed the skills gap, or we could probably pitch it more positively, but what are the skills that people are going to need in the future? What is the ideal fintech employee, innovator, entrepreneur? What are they going to look like, or at least what do you think they're going to look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've done a lot of research actually around the skills of the future for the financial services sector specifically. So the interesting thing that clearly there are some technical skills, which I can talk a little bit about, which are going to be really important going forward, and having those types of skills are critical. But the thing we found actually is, I think for success, what is recommended is that we have a broad mix of skills too, like things like, the softer skills, even things like emotional intelligence, the ability to work together, problem solve, communication skills, the ability to influence people. Those still remain of high importance. So along with the technical skills, people want the full package when they're looking for the perfect employees of the future, because, it's a fast changing environment. People need to pivot very quickly all of a sudden. So you need people who can do that. So, I can't sort of, enforce that sort of enough, that it isn't just the technical skills, it's the whole package that we're looking for. When you think about the technical skills, I mean, those will evolve. I would say the ones right now, they're in high demand. Of course, data analytics, clearly, we can't get enough people like that. The other one for sure would be cybersecurity. Anyone with a strong background in cybersecurity, of course, it was always a strong need for the industry, but now, with COVID, of course, everyone working from home, we all know, the numbers of the cyber issue is enormous now, even more so than it was before the pandemic. So those types of areas in particular, people with AI skills, of course, we're fortunate in the Toronto region that we have, a very strong talent pool when it comes to AI. But clearly, anyone walking in the door to the financial services sector with that type of a background, those types of skills, that's in high demand. I mean, and I really think in terms of the use of AI in the industry, we're just at the beginning too. We're really just starting to understand what can we do with that type of a capability in all parts of our businesses. So those types of skills, there's no doubt about it, those will be in high demand for quite some time. I mean, of course, I know we're not going to talk too much about this topic, but sustainable finance as well, people with those types of skills. There'll be different technologies that will be needed as a result of some of the work that's being done in ESG and sustainable finance. So I think that's probably an up-and-comer too, from a technology perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I was on a call 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago here with Allison Wolf, and just going back to your comment about people skills. So we were talking about automation, finding ways to do account reconciliation in a way that doesn't require as much people power. And what we came to, really, the conclusion was that while all these technical skills, automation is really important, but what automation is going to do is going to free up people to do more of the thinking, of the going back and forth, to communicating. I think the example we had was getting market intelligence from someone who sells real estate in Calgary, right? And that job isn't going to go away. That skill isn't going to go away. What's going to happen is it's going to get translated into something that can be automated, and that person is going to be freed up, and people in the back office are going to be freed up to do other things. So I think you're, at least based on my, the conversations that I have, is this idea that technical skills are all of a sudden going to usurp people skills or the ability to communicate. I think hasn't been borne out in what I've seen. And I think another important perspective, and I know it's Toronto Financial International that I think we overlook, is that the diversity of talent and backgrounds that we have in Toronto is probably unparalleled in the world, right? You can walk down Bay Street or walk in any trading room or lending operation, and you'll see people from all walks of life, multiple cultures. And I think that's a real advantage that we have as well.
Absolutely. And it's one, again, when I'm doing my marketing, I talk about that all the time. 51% of the people living in Toronto were not born in Canada. I think that diversity is a strength for sure. I think we're a great place to live, so we're able to attract people here from different countries. And that's just great for the workforce. I mean, we all know for Canada, certainly immigration is part of our economic strategy. And I think for the financial services sector in particular, for us to grow, to remain competitive, we need to just keep pulling that talent in as much as we can. And as we were talking about earlier, I think we've got a good story here. It's an exciting place to be from a technology perspective, fintech, financial services generally.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe just a little bit for the people who aren't that familiar with Toronto, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of the financial institutions that we have there, and a little bit about, I know about some of the big tech companies that we have, and some of the, the Mars Discovery District and the Vector Institute, but there's probably a lot going on that we don't know about. Do you want to just give us just a rough overview of the financial ecosystem in Toronto?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the highlights certainly are, very stable banking sector. Our big five banks. We all probably know those names: the BMOs, the RBCs, and Scotias of the world. That is a strength for Canada, certainly. Their growth has been tremendous. We also have a couple of other areas, though, that we don't maybe talk about as much. Our insurance sector is very, very strong. We've got global players in Manulife and Sun Life, and those are exciting opportunities in the insurance sector. InsurTech in particular, there's tremendous growth there, not just in Canada, but globally on that front. So lots of interesting things happening from an innovation perspective in that part of the industry. I think about our pension funds. We have our pensions are the third largest in terms of assets globally. So global investors doing really, really interesting things from a technology perspective too, and really thinking about how they're going to invest in different segments, obviously, in the technology sector. So, we have those big incumbents that we can always talk about, but then we've also got that tech ecosystem. And what we're seeing is that a lot of the Googles of the world, the Ubers, all these large tech companies are recognizing our talent pool, which is fantastic, and setting up sort of their development hubs here in the city. So that's another dimension, I think, of the ecosystem, which is really important. Those tech companies working with the big incumbents, and then you've got layer on top of that some of the smaller fintechs and the activity that we're seeing there, and through not just in Toronto, obviously through the Kitchener-Waterloo corridor as well. I think that's a really powerful sort of story and hub of activity that we're seeing there. So, I think the other element too is strong. Our post-secondary institutions are very strong from a research perspective. That's an important part of the story too. We wouldn't have the AI activity talent that we have here if we didn't have such strong post-secondary and research going on in our institutions, because that's, the Vector Institute you mentioned, very important, for us to have that capability in that institute, and for that to, it attracts talent, it attracts business, it attracts dollars. So all of those things are really important to kind of the ecosystem and developing that. And I think just generally, you talked a bit about the city itself. It is, we always talk about real estate prices when we talk about Toronto, but it is a very livable city. If you compare it to other big financial centers globally, it's actually a pretty affordable place, believe it or not. We also, if you think about the cost of labor and all those types of things, it's actually more competitive than many other global financial centers. So I think all of those different elements kind of work together to create, a pretty attractive environment right now.
Yeah, I agree, and certainly looking at what's going on in the city or in the markets right now in Toronto. We see a lot through our conversations, but I think the proof is in the pudding. It seems to be bearing out. I think two more topics that I'd like to touch on at least. I don't think we should avoid talking about sustainable finance. I think that Toronto has a I would almost say. We should be proud of what we're doing in sustainable finance, and I think I hope probably London is gonna lead the way for a little bit, just because how far ahead of us the UK is. But I think that in North America, or perhaps ultimately worldwide, I think we can lead the way in sustainable finance. And this is maybe usually my role, but do you want to tell people what sustainable finance is and why it's important for the Toronto ecosystem, or just in general? I don't think we've touched on it a single time in any of our webinars, so this would be a great time to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really important topic right now in the financial services sector. I mean, as you know, it's so top of mind. There's so much momentum right now around sustainable finance. I just think there's been this, maybe we're following fast on a UK, on a London, on this particular topic, or Europe, but there's just been really a wholehearted embrace from the financial services sector of we need to be moving forward as quickly as we can. We need to grow our capability, our expertise, the activity that's happening in sustainable finance. And I think there's a recognition that, transition is going to be really important for Canada. It's going to be hard too, because of our resource-based economy. And so I think that recognition is really making people want to move more quickly. I think where we can be experts in Canada is around transition, because it is going to be harder for us. Hopefully we can be a leader on that front. There's other countries who are going to struggle with the same things that we're struggling with in terms of the evolution of our economy. So I think it's been a great thing to see that activity, whether it's through our banks, through our pension funds, through our insurers. They're all very much driving forward. And it hasn't, if you think about Europe or the UK, it's been much more government-led, policy-led. Like, we're really seeing the private sector step up here and really try to move things forward. So I think, for young people thinking about careers in that area, that's a really exciting place to be. I think we're trying to build, I know in the financial services sector, we're doing a lot of work around that skill building and what do we need to move forward and be able to sustain that momentum, as we have all kinds of, we've got announcements every day around net zero and around financial commitments from the big institutions that are going to drive capital towards different initiatives, to obviously to lower our carbon footprint and meet our climate goals. So I think that's going to create lots of opportunities for young people and just generally for professionals in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the next skills gap that needs to get filled, and right now there's certainly a vacuum. I know that people sometimes ask me the questions like, "Oh, why Canada or why Toronto?" And I say, well, if you think about it, Canada is I don't want to call it a microcosm because we're so big, but let's call it a microcosm, for lack of a better word, for the world. Right? We've got hot, we've got cold, we've got big cities, we've got small cities, we've got mountains, we've got deserts, we've got forests, we've got old growth, we've got water, we've got droughts. We basically anything you can. We've got old industry, we've got new industry, and so if there's anywhere where we have to really tackle all of all of the perspectives of a transition, then it's certainly going to be in Canada. So all of the solutions we come up with here are going to apply to some context in some country somewhere else, and so we might as well get busy with solving those. And I know there are a lot of experts in Toronto. We deal with them quite often as well. I don't want to say last question, but a sort of a final topic. I think we have an idea, or at least I have an idea, maybe some of the people on the call have an idea about the type of skills that we need right now, right? We still need people skills. We need analytics. And in a lot of my conversations, actually, I find that it's not the analytics so much, or the advanced analytics that we need. It's really actually just low-level automation in some cases. How do I automate what was previously a manual, sort of a manual job, and how do I make that? How do I automate that? But what are the skills of the future? What are we going to need 10 years from now? Or to the report, I know that you at least alluded to it. you looked at what are the gaps that we need to fill in the next 10 years. And I'm thinking about things like crypto economics, blockchain, spatial finance. There's all sorts of topics out there. But what do you think, for the people that want to have a long career, what are the things we should be focusing on in the not so near future?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. You think about, to your point, around crypto or around quantum, like all those different emerging technologies, and what will the world look like? There's so many, you can speculate forever, really, right, around like things like crypto. Where does that take us, right? And you can get a broad array of opinions on that one for sure. I think that, the underlying thing is that you got to be ready to be constantly learning. I think that's the reality. If you want to be successful in your career, constantly learning. Long gone are the days where you just get your master's or whatever it is, and you go through life and you learn only, in your career, in your job. I think we all need to be thinking about, I'm not saying this is a plug for Queens actually, but I do think we need to think about always, educating ourselves and going back and refreshing, and so that we can be forward thinking, and we can, be those individuals who can take advantage of emerging technologies and be, the thought leaders around where we should take an industry. So I think it's interesting times. I actually, for me, it's great. If you like to learn, it's the perfect world to be living in now, because it does move so quickly. And we do constantly have to be keeping up to speed with many different things. So, I wouldn't point necessarily to one technology or one particular area that would be, the future for everyone, or for those who want to be successful. I really think it is that ability to pivot, and to constantly be learning new things, and just have that hunger too, to change. It's, I think our jobs, there's all kinds of statistics around, my parents' generation would have one career, basically. We are, I don't know, my generation, I think we're supposed to have 5 or 6. The next generation, is that 15 or 20? I don't know how quickly we're going to have to change and do new things, but it's interesting times for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you started with my career shoveling snow, then I've had at least 5 or 6. But who knows if the shoveling snow career is gonna be around in a couple of years. I think that's a good message to send. Is to be flexible, and to assume that you're going to have to be flexible even more so going forward. I know advice that I give my graduate students that are going to research, they often come and say, well, what programming language should I learn? I'm like, well, you should learn all of them. You should learn the programming language that's most useful now. And then if you find a new data set or a new topic or a new question or a new code base that's in something else, you should learn a new one. And then you should learn a new one. And I mean, I'm 40 some odd years, closer to 50 than I am to 40. And, I found myself learning a new programming language last year because it happened to be the only one that I could use to solve the problem that I had in front of me. So I think, the message, what we need to know today might not be what we need to know tomorrow, and just be flexible in what it is that you want to learn. I think we're in a truly a period of disruption in financial services, and no one's quite sure how everything is going to reorganize. So
I think that's an interesting point. I mean, you think about the pandemic and how quickly it changed the financial services industry and every industry. But the pace of change, we have done things in the financial services industry in the last 18 months we never thought we could do. We never thought we could put a trading floor, in your bedroom, in your living room suddenly. Never thought that would work. I grew up my career in the capital markets. We always thought we had to be in the office in investment making. So, the customer demands are completely different. Client demands, the way we do things, completely different. So I think this has shown us that we can actually change very quickly, and obviously the importance of technology. But it's I guess that's the silver lining. Is we've really moved more quickly in terms of technological advancement in the industry than we would have otherwise. Yeah,
that's right with the work from home thing. I imagine if we asked anyone in February 2020 if we could move the trading floor to the condos downtown Toronto, they would have said no. But on Friday night of, what was it, the 12th of March or 17th of March, can't remember the date, and then open up on Monday morning without a hitch, all trading from home, it seemed to be something that was completely doable. And the question is, well, why didn't we think about doing this? I mean, there might be some repercussions that we don't know. There might be some indirect effects, but for the most part, at least in equity markets, we closed Friday from trading floors on Bay Street and are close to that, and we opened Monday morning from condos or houses close to Toronto, and everything sort of seemed to generally work. So it's I think
pretty
being
amazing.
flexible. Yeah, it was actually pretty amazing. In the long term, I really hope to be able to write a study about that at some point, how it happened, when it happened, if there were effects, but hey, we'll see. It certainly was amazing. I know we had the exact same experience at university. For years, we've been saying, hey, we can probably teach from home. We can do this. There's asynchronous stuff. University said it'll never work. We need high touch. Well, from Friday night to Monday morning, all of a sudden it was completely doable. And while there are some positives and some negatives, it seemed to work.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what sort of hybrid model. That's what everyone's talking about in financial services right now. What is that hybrid model as we all go back to the office? So I think we'll see some experiments happening over the next year or so until we all figure that out.
Yeah, as long as the hybrid model includes a nap for me in the afternoon, then I'm fine with any hybrid. I can nap in the office. I'm fine with that. That's hybrid for me. I can nap at home. 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I always say I have 2 days every day. I've got before nap and after nap. And it's good. I'm cognizant of time. We've got about a half a minute because I've got to get through the next half hour. Any final thoughts that you'd like to send to us or anyone listening?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot of different topics. I hope I conveyed. I think I am very positive on sort of what's happening in the financial services sector in Toronto. So I do think that if you think about top 10 fintech hubs globally, we're number 8 now, so we're in the top 10. So that's clearly there's a lot of 4 of those would be in the US, but I think it's pretty amazing that we've really sort of come up through the ranks. So I think it's, like I said earlier, a really interesting time for us.
Yeah, it's hard to be negative, even if you're a pessimist. So it's almost only good news. Thank you very much, Jennifer. I really appreciated it. I hope you had a fun time. We'll be posting this on YouTube, and I'll make sure to send you the link. And I'm sure that we'll be talking again in the very near future.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Okay. So everyone on the call has the unfortunate, well, you have to unfortunately listen to me for the next 30 minutes, talk a little bit about the rest of the FinTech program. So just give me a second here to get set up. And participants, here we go. Now, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. I see there is one question in the chat. Are there any startup activities for students to get involved in? It's difficult to know what you mean by startup activities, but we certainly do have connections to incubators. We have a course that is all about innovation and sort of entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. So there are a lot of opportunities to get involved with, at least through the program. But what I'll do over the next 15 or 20 minutes, I'll just walk you quickly through the program, and then at the end we can answer any questions that are left over. I'll give you sort of one last little piece of information. While we are still recruiting for our November intake, we are, I don't want to say essentially full, but we are close to full or almost at capacity. So we're really just, if we do admit students to the program, they'll be exceptional students, but we are also recruiting for November 2023. And there we go. Now I can work my slides as well. Yeah, so feel free to put your questions into the Q&A, but also into the chat box. So Smith, we're not we're not brand new, right? We've been educating business leaders for over a century. So we've been here for a long time. We're going to be here for a long time. In fact, we might even be here when fintech is no longer a thing, and it's just sort of the typical way to do things. The program that we're going to talk about today is a first of its kind. In fact, really now there are very few, even now, this is a year and a half after sort of the initial launch of the program, there are very few other programs like it, and I would argue almost none. But what is the program? Well, let's talk a little bit about the opportunity. So this is a testimonial from McKinsey. I have lots of people who speak the language of business, and I have no problem finding software engineers who can speak the language of technology, but we need translators that speak both. And this is no different than in financial markets, right? In financial markets, we have people that are financial experts, we have people that are technology experts, but we really need people that are experts in both, that understand how financial markets work and how capital markets work, but also understand how technology, analytics, automation work, and speak both of the languages. So this consistent refrain that I've heard, or people like Jennifer have heard, is this growing need for experts with an understanding of the fundamentals of finance, right? Not just sort of the basics, but the fundamentals, skills in data science, machine learning. We've got advances that, day to day, essentially we have new fintech offerings, new blockchains, distributed ledger technologies, the way that investors are using machine learning and analytics, trading, the platforms that we can trade on that we couldn't trade on before, the operators, the sort of everything that's going on in all of these different programs. And the idea of this program is to train people that will fill these gaps, right? Train people so that they know how to do the machine learning, but they also understand what it is that they're writing a machine learning algorithm for. So we have a testimonial from Jennifer Reynolds, but the testimonial that she just gave for the last 30 minutes probably covers it. The essence is that we have financial and technology skills that we're going to need, and we don't have enough people to fill these roles. So the foundations of the program built on data science, machine learning, and financial technology, right? So the application of machine learning and data science to financial issues. So an idea or an example is from data science. Well, where can we invest or where can we lend, right? And data science is where we collect the data, we collect previous lending decisions, we look at previous investment decisions, we look at the success of those decisions, how did credit rating work, how can we score the credit quality of individual borrowers. So we've scoured the landscape, collected the data, and put it into a format that's usable. Well, then the financial analysts would say, or the analysis would say, well, what are the risks of making this loan? Or what's the potential return for making this investment, right? And so there we would use the skills that we would normally learn in financial courses. We would apply them here. But then we can say, well, let's take automation and machine learning and see how can we do this better? How can we do this cheaper? How can we do this faster? How can we do this with less effort from the individuals, right? And then combining that all together into an automated and technology supported decision-making sort of tool set is financial technology, right? We're taking the data science, we're taking the analytics, we're taking the finance, we're bundling it all together, and we develop a new product or a new offering or a new way of solving an old problem, or combination of these technologies to come up with a completely new solution for something that we previously couldn't do with old technologies. So it's about technology and finance, not or and not only. So it's about knowing how new data science tools work and then applying them to, and I've already talked about investing and lending, but to pricing of loans, to trading derivatives, hedging derivatives, pricing derivatives, managing risks in financial institutions, managing risks in technology institutions. It's about managing assets. It's about valuing things. So we're talking about mergers and acquisitions, valuing a bond, valuing cash flows, valuing portfolios of all of these things, valuing real estate. We talked last month to the CFO of Oxford Properties, one of the largest international real estate investors. And we talked about how they're using machine learning and artificial intelligence to price leases, to decide where they're going to invest, right? And they move from gateway cities like New York and San Francisco and London to secondary cities like Austin or Miami Beach in Florida, right? This is where people were moving from gateway cities into countries into other or secondary cities in these jurisdictions. And this came all out of their machine learning algorithms that they use to make these decisions, and predicting macroeconomic trends. Where's inflation going to go? Where are interest rates going to go? Right? And so there's multiple things that you can use all of these technologies for. So the idea in the program or the curriculum is theory with practical application. So we've got extensive coverage of the fundamental mathematics, statistical theories that you're gonna need, but with a practitioner focus and with the lens of technology, right? So financial theory is going to be there, and we're going to help you guys to apply it to real world decision making, right? So we're not going to create sort of PhD level theory or financial theory experts, but we are going to take people that can translate financial theory into real world decision making. Power skills, strategy, innovation, entrepreneurship, communication, teamwork, professionalism. How do you tell stories with data? How do you lead a team? How do you be a member in a team? How do you communicate across cultural organizations? So all of these things are going to be part of what you learn. So we've got a number of courses. We're creating new ventures, designing digital innovation, banking disrupted, crypto economics and payments, digital capital markets, automated investing. And then we have some new courses from the old program. The first cohort, there were a lot of lessons learned, or the best way to deliver the material. So we introduced 2 new courses. One is on financial data privacy and security. So there we can also talk about open banking. We can talk about quantum. We can talk about protecting the data of individuals, but also using that as a business model. And we're going to have a team-based project course that starts the first day here in the program and ends, I don't want to say the last day, but just take it with a grain of salt, but ends at the end of the program. And this is going to be a project that you're going to be able to use to hone your skills across. And at the end, you should have something to show for the entire program. Either you've got a prototype that you're working on something, or a pitch, or you've got a report or some sort of analysis on a topic of interest. And we also have corporate finance and financial statement analysis. We couple that with analytics courses, AI ethics and policy, then the acquisition and management of data. So this is sort of your core or your stack in data science. Introduction to analytical modeling. This is going to be your introduction to machine learning algorithms. Predictive modeling is intermediate machine learning and regression analysis. And then the third is machine learning and AI techniques. You can think of this as your third course in machine learning. So what you don't learn in the first 2 courses, then you're going to learn in the third course. We're going to learn a number of programming language, and a number of programming language and skills and software tools are going to be necessary. Now, I wouldn't say that this is inclusive of everything you're ever going to need in the program or after you graduate, but you're going to be exposed to a number of these technologies. So Python, I think, is the workhorse of machine learning and analytics in most application areas. SQL, so structured query language, is the way to access data. R is another statistical package, a set of statistical packages that does similar things to Python. Python is a fully fledged programming language. R is a collection of statistical packages that also has I would say, a basic programming interface that you can use. You can also use SAS, which is a very large industrial scale software. I use SAS for a lot of my pre-processing of data. Tableau is great for visualizations, and there are other skills and tools that you might learn in the program, but you also might learn in your individual projects. So the program begins, at least the next intake begins November 2021, goes to December 2022. There are 2 residential sessions during the 14-month program. November at Smith, Toronto, and now there is an option to attend remotely until it's sort of clear from Public Health Toronto when and how we're allowed to open up our Smith Toronto option. And we're really hoping that June at Goods Hall in Kingston, we can have our second residential session. There's a lot of positive news. We've had residential sessions now and are planning some in the future. So we really hope to be able to get in person. There's also going to be remote options for that as well. Classes are weeknights and weekends. Throughout, mostly held from Smith Toronto. There's also going to be a remote option available throughout the program. We've got asynchronous classes as well and self-study, but we really do want to have a lot of synchronous learning, and when possible, we'll be in person together. But the people that can't be in person with us together, will be able to interface or interact with the class synchronously through the remote options that we have. Yeah, week-long session. You know, the great thing about the residential study sessions are the ones where we're together, is you sort of immerse yourself as a full-time student, network and connect. We've got great experiences as well doing this virtually and remotely. So we have, you know, an entire cohort that's gone through in a remote fashion over the last 12 months. They've built teams, they've met together afterwards, they communicate, they network, they help each other with jobs. So we've, you know, got really good experience with the networking experience in person, but also the networking experience in not in person, but remotely. Some of the faculty members besides me, unfortunately, you're gonna have to see me a lot in the program. So if you know, can't stand the way I look or the way I communicate, then, you know, this might not be the program for you. But if you think that maybe I'm okay, we do have other people as well. So we've got Dr. Elspeth Murray. She's an associate professor. She's also the associate dean of the MBA and master's program. She's the director for the Center for Business Venturing, and she's a faculty fellow in entrepreneurship. She'll be teaching you innovation. Stephen Thomas, the people that know him well call him Uncle Steve. He's going to be teaching a lot of the courses in machine learning and AI. He's the executive director of the MMA program, the Masters of Management Analytics, and also the executive director of the Masters of Management in Artificial Intelligence. Colleague of mine from the finance area, Lynette Perda. She's a professor, RBC Fellow of Finance, and she'll be teaching Banking Disrupted. And Tina Dason from Strategy. She's a professor and one of our esteemed Stephen J.R. Smith, which also gave us the name of our faculty, chair of Strategy and Organizational Behavior, and she'll be teaching you AI, ethics, and policy. We have a fabulous advisory board, and I'll try to speed this up to get closer to the end quickly. And I see there's been a couple of questions, although one of them seems to have been answered, but I'll still try to save some time. We've got John Aikman, Rob Bennett, we've got Sai, who's an SVP of Finance at Point Click and Care, Jonathan Hunter, who's the head of global markets at RBC Capital Markets, Jennifer Reynolds, that you just met at the start of the call, Raheel, who's the director of innovation at CPP Investments, one of these extremely large pension funds in Canada. We've got Francisco, who's the director for central bank digital currencies and fintech policy at the Bank of Canada. Kevin Sampson, who's the president of trading, Toronto Stock Exchange. We've got Dino Trevisani, he's the general manager, basically does sales and for financial services for IBM. Tracy Stern at the Ontario Securities Commission. Alison Wolf, that I mentioned a couple minutes ago, from Oxford Properties, the CFO, and Larry Zelvin, the executive vice president and the head of financial crimes units at BMO. And I did miss one person that I should actually mention. Rob Bennett is the president and CEO of Alterna Savings and Alterna Bank, and he's going to be with me for the next, I think it's in 2 weeks, the next session that we have. We'll be having a discussion the way that Jennifer and I just did on the ecosystem. We got a great career management framework. So, you know, it just doesn't matter if you want to discover your strengths, build your skills in your personal brand, or launch your career. The career management team is there for you. We've been recognized by the Vector Institute. For those of you that don't know, the Vector Institute is the sort of accreditation body and AI organization in Toronto. And so the MFIT program has been reviewed by their faculty and industry representative. We've been recognized by the Institute for developing a curriculum that equips its graduate with skills and competencies sought by industry as a complementary program in business. So the incoming students for fall 2020 may also be eligible for the Vector scholarships in AI. And so there's the nomination period, so we can't guarantee, but certainly because of the accreditation that we got through the Vector Institute, then you can apply for these scholarships. There's a bunch of benefits. We're also a partner with the Canadian Olympic Committee. So there might be someone in your class that also happens to be an Olympian. A little bit of information about the network, and soon we're going to update this with our students. In fact, I'm going to skip over this part and just go to our current class profile. So 19 students in our initial class. They're just completing it now. We've already doubled and almost tripled our intake, and I think 50 is going to be our max. Like I said, we're already well over what our target was and what we think is we needed. So we're only looking for extremely high quality students where we say, well, this is going to be the perfect student for the program. So 19 students in the inaugural class, 33 years of age for the average student, 9 years of work experience, 1/4 female, 3/4 male. The current split looks much closer to 50-50. It's not quite 50-50, but we're really hoping to identify females that really pass well into the program, and we're doing our best to increase the numbers to be more representative. 2 international students, citizenships from Canada, China, India, Iran, Nigeria, and Pakistan. We had a great diversity of industries represented for our first incoming class. We've got automotive, capital markets, consulting, energy, insurance, real estate, retail, software development, wealth managers, web tech. So we really had a lot of individual groups. Now, I can't remember, Marianne, or if someone else is there, or Lauren, if someone else does this part where we talk about fees and the other things, or if I should just go through it. I'll just wait a second. If I don't hear anything, I'll just go through it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Ryan, just
Sure.
take it away.
Okay, I'll do it. So just for those of you out there, I don't usually do this part of it. So, I'll try to wing it. But the domestic tuition is available for the low price of 44,000 Canadian dollars, international $76,000. This includes tuition, books, all of your learning materials, meals, accommodations, the residential sessions, software, licenses. All of my jokes are also included. So don't worry about that. I think it's in a deposit in the 3 installment payments over the year. You're gonna, the next step, if you do want to, if you do want to apply, would be you talk to the application advisor. You complete a preliminary assessment, meaning, do you meet the requirements? Is this a good fit for you? They'll help you, guide you through the process. They're going to help you present a strong case. Ultimately, I'm the one that decides if you get admitted or not. It's a rolling admission, so there's no cutoff dates. Of course, November 1st, when we start the program, then that's certainly the cutoff date. But of course, you can apply for the next cohort intake, which is also going to be November 1st, 2023. So if you do want to start an assessment, despite spending the last 55 minutes listening to me speak, then send an email to MFIT@QueensU, and one of our application experts or advisors will help you walk through the program. And I think with that, that's the end of the formal part of the presentation. I'll just stop the share. I see there are 2 questions here. First question is from an anonymous attendee. This person asks a lot of questions at webinars, but hey, can you please give some examples of the team-based projects that the students will be working on? That's a good question. So the team-based projects that we're introducing are brand new. So they're going to be starting November 1st, 2022. This was sort of one of the, I'd say the most common comments we got from our advisory board. We had an advisory board a subcommittee on curriculum, also speaking to the students and also speaking basically with everyone, said that you should have a full credit project course in the program. The idea is that people that are working for organizations might have problems that they want to solve within their own organization, so they can present it to their managers or senior managers and say, hey, I'm joining the MFIT program. We've got an opportunity to use all of the skills that we're going to learn to help solve this program, and we're going to try to do it, and we'll present you the results at the end. So some people are going to take this project and they're going to solve a problem in their own organization. Others might say, hey, I really want to work on a startup. Here's my idea, and you can work on your startup or a pitch. Others might say, hey, I want to work on a report or a visualization. And they might work through it that way. So the ideas are that data is going to come sort of organically, right? I can give you data, I can give you ideas, but you guys should be working on things that are important to you, that you think need to be solved, and that are relevant to your organizations. Hopefully that answered your question. So the next question, how many students you're targeting? We were targeting 38. That was, you know, a doubling. We're over 38. I think we're going to do absolute maximum of 50. At some point, there's going to be capacity constraints. I really want to keep this as a, I mean, bespoke is the wrong word, but a bespoke program. I don't think this is going to be extremely, you know, it's not going to be a massive program. And I think so 50 is where I see it, at least for the next intake. And we're already, I don't know if we're at 50, we're close to 50, but you know, we're pretty good. Got some questions in the chat. Startup activities answered. The presentation slides, I think that the presentation slides get emailed afterwards, but regardless, a recording gets sent out. Yeah, I see that Lauren already answered that. Yes, so there, you know, this goes out and there's a little YouTube channel, so feel free to watch it as many times as you want, and just to sort of, you know, goose up my numbers so I can show my kids and like, hey, I'm YouTube famous. I got 104 views of my YouTube channel. Yeah. Any other questions? I got another minute or two. And if not, then I think maybe I did such a good job either scaring you all away or answered all of your questions in advance. So yeah, if you're still interested, feel free to send an email to start the conversation, either for now or for next year. And if you have any questions about content or sort of other things, also feel free. There is one last question just popped up. Is there a double degree option for AI and FinTech program? So not quite sure what you mean, but I'll try to interpret. So we have a Masters of Management Analytics program, which is like an AI program. We also have Masters of Management Masters of Management in Artificial Intelligence. And you can do a double degree in the MMA and in the MFIT. 5 of our courses in the MFIT program come directly from the MMA and the MMAI program, because we're partner programs, or we're piggybacking. And so there are dual degree options, and we have in our current cohorts students that have either done both in parallel or they've done them in sequence, done the MMA and then gone on to do the MFIT program. Nicholas is excited to get started. I'm glad you're excited. I'm excited too. You're also excited about the market, so that was also good. It's always fun to watch what's going on in real time. Rahul as well. I'm looking forward to it starting again as well. Okay. Oh, how long would it take to do the double degree program? That's a good question. It's a good question for an application advisor. It really depends on which cohort you join in the MMA, and if you're starting in November. So it could be, you know, anywhere from 18 months to 24 months, or 14 months to 24 months. But I'd just be guessing at this point. If the MFIT takes 14 months, I'm assuming we're not going to have perfect overlap, so it could be, you know, 2 to 6 months longer. And it also depends on you, how fast you get through all of the courses. Okay, thank you, everyone. It's great to all have you here. Oh, do I have 2 more questions in this? Okay, I do. If we want to do the IA after the MFIT, can we apply for it now? Nicholas, I would talk to one of the application advisors. They can tell you exactly what's going on. I'm okay for some things like content, but whether or not it's better to do the AI first and then the MFIT, or the MFIT first to the AI, they can probably best answer that. You know, it is probably good to do them in parallel, but you know what, I would talk to an application advisor. I don't want to give you any kind of advice that's not tailored to you. And Amelia Arellano, would you say this program is considerably better, given the times, technology, than doing an MBA? Well, of course, this is much better than doing an MBA. Now, the serious answer is it really depends on your goals, right? If you want to be a general manager, if you want to go into strategy, if you want to do marketing, if you want to do accounting, there's all sorts of, you're broadly interested in a lot of things management related, then an MBA is great for you. And Queen's has got a great MBA, so do other schools, and I would recommend you looking into that. But if you're really interested in the intersection of technology and finance, these two things, if there's a Venn diagram, technology and finance, and these things overlap, for you, you just have to decide, well, how big is the overlap, right? If the overlap is small, then maybe you do a technology degree, or maybe you do a pure finance degree, right? We've got a fabulous Masters of Finance program at Queen's. But if the overlap is large, if you like technology, you like thinking about analytics, you like thinking about how to do these things, and you like finance, you like derivatives, you like trading, capital markets, lending, crypto, whatever it is, then this is the program. This is the program for you, right? This is really the intersection of finance and technology. And if you don't like the intersection of the two, or you don't think that that's what you would like if you were exposed to it more, then this isn't the program for you. Hopefully I answered your question, Amelia. Okay, well, we are now up to time, and I've got, anyways, I think I've answered all the questions, and if I haven't, then feel free to reach out to an application advisor, and if they can't answer it, they'll be sure to forward them on to me. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.